Okay, we are live. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. We are beginning Shir haShirim, class number 52 on the Song of Songs, chapter 6. We're up to verse 9. Tonight's class, as usual, be dedicated in memory of my father. May he rest in peace. Yisrael Tovia ben Eლიעזר, my Rebbi, blessed memory, Zechariah Shemoneh ben Yitzchak HaKohen. We'll have in mind our learning should be a merit for the speedy recovery, refua shlema of Mנחem Raubin ben Minieh Hindeh and Chana bas Sarah. And with that, we have another person coming into the stream. Hello, Pauline.
Hi, Rabbi.
Or should I call you Tikva?
It doesn't matter. I answer to both.
Okay. We are glad you are here.
I'm glad to be here.
Yeah, and thank you for commenting on my other classes on whichever channel you may have found them.
Yeah, I just was watching class 51.
Yeah.
And I think I put like 3 or 4 questions on there. Maybe
Okay.
3. Like 3.
Okay, I saw one comment that I responded to, but you may have put some more since then that I didn't see yet.
Like, I literally just got done watching it because I was trying to finish it before this class started. So I was like,
Right. Well, the end of that one is a real doozy.
Yes, it was. Oh my gosh, mind blown. It was like insane. I was like, oh my gosh, I need to like re-listen to it and write all that stuff down.
So Chana just joined, but it's telling me that Chana's devices are not connected. So I don't know if she can hear me, but I'm unable to hear or see her, which of course is optional. A person, okay, now I see Chana's microphone little symbol appeared, so she should be able to be heard and to hear me. Chana, do you want to say hello? You don't have to. I'll take it as a no. But or maybe I have to do this. Okay, Chana, now you should be able to say hello.
Hello.
Okay. We got you.
Can you hear me?
We hear you. All right.
Okay.
Now it's a class. We have Cliff, we have Tikva, we have Chana. Now we're really ready to go. We've got 2 viewers on YouTube. And if you're viewing on Facebook or LinkedIn, I don't think I can see your comments. For Facebook, you have to go to StreamYard.com and allow permission to see your comments. And for YouTube users, I think it should be automatic. I should be able to see your comments in the live chat. Okay, so we're gonna hit the text. We're gonna bring it up. We'll do a quick review of last time, and we'll jump into things here. Of course, as always, you may interrupt at any time. So I've just added the Google Doc to the screen. I'm gonna go and expand the text larger. I'm actually looking at the wrong verse right now because I got a little further ahead in my prep, but we are really on verse 10. No, on verse 9 rather. And I'm just going to quickly review verse 8, which was the last one that we did in class 51, the previous class. Quick review. Okay. That's good. Let's enlarge it a little more. Okay. Hopefully the text is clear in the broadcast. I'm going to expand my face a little bit because I'm so beautiful you don't want to look at me. That's a little joke. So we have over here in verse 8, we saw that it says, Shishim hema melachos, the queens are 60, ushmonim pilagshim, and 80 concubines, va'alamos ein mispar, and maidens without number. So the context is, here is God's praise of Israel in the Second Temple period. We have someone else coming in, Yaakov. Okay. Oh, this is probably Yaakov Barish. It also says device is not connected. So I cannot connect you to the class, it says you'll need to connect your mic and camera before I can add you. So I don't know if you can hear me, but we won't be able to hear or see you until you figure out. Oh, okay, something happened. Now I can add you.
You can hear me.
Now I can hear you, and I don't have to see you if you want to keep your camera off. So now it says you're not connected again. I'm not sure why. Now you're connected again.
Connected again.
Okay, I added you back. Now you're connected again. Okay. Whatever you just did to get yourself unconnected, cut it out.
Don't do it. Okay. Yeah,
Okay.
I was having computer problems also.
Yeah, see, it's we have something in common.
It's
a universal problem.
It's a plague.
Yeah. Okay, so my policy is interrupt at any time with questions or comments. In the meantime, I will mute your microphones so we don't have backup background noise. But you can unmute yourself when you want to. Okay. So I think you should be able to. Now, fine. So we're looking at the text. 8. Okay, so God's praising the Jewish people in the Second Temple. The whole book of Song of Songs is a parable of a love song between a man and a woman, the man representing God and the woman representing Israel. And among the praises of the Jewish people that appears in this chapter 6, is this praise of the 60 queens, 80 concubines, and maidens without number. Now, we haven't really heard a praise. We just heard that there are 60 queens, 80 concubines, and maidens without number. Now, what we did learn last time is that the 60 queens are Avraham, the patriarch of the Jewish people, and his seed, which is inclusive of the families of Ishmael, which was one of his sons, the families of Esav, that's Esau, one of Isaac's sons, and their offspring as recorded in the Torah and the Tanakh. So when we look in the lineages, we find up to the Jacob's sons, which are the 12 tribes. If we include everybody up to the 12 sons of Jacob, the descendants of Esav that are named, and the descendants of Yishmael that are named, we find in the progeny of Abraham exactly 60 names, and these are the 60 queens that are referred to here. The 60 queens are the family of Abraham as recorded in the genealogy of the Tanakh up to the 12 sons of Jacob.
Rabbi, I have a question.
Yes.
Would that include Amalek?
Yes, including Amalek. Correct.
Okay.
Correct. That we covered last time. And then the 80 concubines, Rashi, the commentator Rashi, counts the offspring of Noah that are enumerated in the Torah from Noah and his sons and the 70 nations that come out, and inclusive of the generations up till Abraham. We find the names of 80 individuals, and those 80 individuals in the family of Noah prior to Abraham that are enumerated in the Torah's genealogy are the concubines, and the alamos ein mispar, the maidens without number, are all the offspring of everyone else that's comes after that in the population of the earth that are not named in the Torah. Those are the maidens without number. It's like all people on the earth, but there's sort of a hierarchy of everyone that we don't hear their names in the Torah are just the maidens without number. Everything's in the female when it's God relating to, and God is depicted as the male. So everyone down here on earth is the female. That's very deep, but not for now. And the Noah and his progeny who are named are concubines, which means they're sort of partial wives. They have something of a wife-like status for God, but not quite on the stature of the queens that are more of an equal consort for God, and those are the seed of Abraham. They have a special place. And Rashi pointed out last time that we find that the seed of Noah is always trying to find their way into the genealogy of Abraham, where Pharaoh gives his daughter Hagar to Abraham as a maidservant, because he said, better she be a maidservant in the family of Abraham than a princess in Egypt. So even though she was literal royalty, but even royalty among, so to speak, the nations of the world is not as prestigious as being a member of the household of the Abrahamic line, even as a servant that he eventually does take as a concubine himself, Abraham. Likewise, we found with Timnah, who was the concubine of Eliphaz, the son of Esav, and she was descended from the family of the Chori, which was a noble family in the land of Seir, which Esav inherits. And so we see that even though she was from a royal family of Seir, she nevertheless attached herself to Esau, the progeny of Abraham, as a mere concubine. So that's the idea of the 80 concubines, is they in a certain way have a not as prestigious ranking as the Abrahamic seed. So that's sort of like the beginning of a praise, because we're starting to see now. In other words, it's somewhat obvious in the Torah that we have Noah is called righteous, and he's saved from the flood, and then we see his progeny spread out and start to be wicked, and the world once again descends into wickedness, and God says, I'm kind of sick and tired and fed up with man. I'll give another, no, that's before Noah. This is 120 years, but rather Noah's progeny also, we have the Tower of Babel and other problematic incidents. And the Torah seems to then focus in on Abraham and his progeny from then forward. Like, out of all the nations of the earth, going forward, the one, just like Noah was chosen righteous among his generation, the one who was chosen from the following generations to be God's focus was Abraham and his seed. And he makes a special covenant with Abraham, the bris milah, the covenant of circumcision, which I actually just came here from a bris. I came from a circumcision just now, not mine, a baby in the community. And I came right here, so a little apropos. God makes a special, unique covenant with Abraham and his seed forever. And that seems to be inclusive of even Esau. What happened after that, I don't know, but there's some source material indicating that Esau was circumcised. And we know that Ishmael was circumcised. And in fact, the Rambam writes in his code of law that that Keturah, who was a concubine of Abraham, who we mentioned last time, actually, that the seed of Abraham includes Keturah's children. Keturah, her children are obligated by the Torah to have circumcision. In other words, it's not, according to the Torah, we have seven laws for the nations of the world, but the sons of Keturah, the descendants of Keturah, are also obligated in the commandment of circumcision by virtue of the fact that they were born to Abraham after he was commanded to circumcise himself and all his male progeny. So Isaac following Abraham's circumcision of himself was the birth of Isaac, and Isaac and all his seed require circumcision. It seems even for Esau that was the case. And for the children of Keturah who were born afterwards also are all required in circumcision. And for whatever reason, Maimonides doesn't feel that Ishmael is commanded to circumcise his offspring. It was only Abraham that was commanded to circumcise his offspring, and Ishmael was a member of his household, so he circumcised him. But it seems that Ishmael, having already been born, was not commanded in this. He had to be circumcised, but he's not commanded to circumcise his offspring. Seems to be the Rambam's Maimonides' understanding, but the children of Keturah who were born later are. And Maimonides writes that the children of Keturah and the children of Ishmael have become totally intermingled nowadays, so that there's no distinction anymore between the children of Ishmael and the children of Keturah, and therefore even Arabs today are required by Torah law to keep circumcision, which they do. Which they do. In other words, certainly Muslim Arabs are circumcised by law, albeit at 13 years old, because they consider themselves descendants of Ishmael, and Ishmael was descended at 13, and that's their tradition. But Maimonides says technically they should be required at 8 days like everybody else. And by the way, when I said 13 years, I heard that a long time ago that they circumcised at 13 years. I'm not certain that's the case. That might have been just a rumor, because I have a friend who is a mohel, a ritual circumciser. And believe it or not, the Muslims will engage a Jewish mohel to circumcise their children if one is available. And maybe, I don't know if they have their own ritual circumcisers. But if it's convenient to use a Jewish one, they'll do it. And they accept it as a proper circumcision by their law, similar to the way they accept Jewish kosher as halal for themselves, even though we don't accept halal as meeting our criteria. But kosher requirements for Jews are accepted by Muslims as halal. If it has an OU on it, they'll eat it, meat, everything. So, so my friend, who's a ritual circumciser, does circumcisions for Muslims as well. And I saw he took a picture of a Muslim circumcision that he did, and he's standing with the father, and he's holding the baby, and it's a baby. And I said to him, they circumcised their babies. I thought it was 13 years old. I don't remember exactly his answer, but it sounded like it wasn't totally definitive. He says different people have different, either he said something like different people have different customs or traditions about it, or that it's really not so rigid by them at what age it happens. Maybe it has to be before 13 or something, up to and including 13 and not later. It seemed to be like, no, plenty of Muslims circumcise their babies. That's not such a hard and fast rule that it can't be prior to. Anyway, that's a little bit of a tangent, but why am I mentioning that? I don't know. So, here's why. Because all we have in there's a praise of Abraham and his seed as being, as we see, I was just saying that God makes a special covenant with Abraham and his seed. You see that in the Torah, and that unique covenant is being expressed here as making Abraham and his progeny the 60 queens as opposed to the 80 concubines. We have a special contract, special marriage contract, as it were. But that doesn't exclude, or in other words, that doesn't specify Israel. It's a praise of all of Abraham's seed. So that's why I said last time, it's only a partial praise. It goes together with the next verse. And it's in this next verse that we can see where we were leading with this, okay? So 60 queens, 80 concubines, maidens without number. Explained what all that means. Now we move on to verse 9, which I'm looking for in my notes here. Can you see it? For whatever reason, it likes to disappear off the screen. I'm going to try getting it back. Okay. I don't know why that falls off a little bit. Okay, I have some YouTube comments. Happy Mac says, that's a bit surprising. I didn't know. I'm not sure what you're referring to. So if you could be specific what I said that was surprising, then I would be edified if you would do that. Spooky says, hi, Rabbi. And Rabbi says, hi, Spooky. Spooky, I know I don't know who you are, but I noticed that you were in the live chat of my Parsha class on Tanakh Talk. So I recognize your name. Hi. Thanks for coming to the class. So, verse 9. Here we go. And interrupt at any time. Achasi yonosi samosi achasi leimo borohi liyoladto ro havanos vai ashiruho milachos ufilagshim vai hallelujah. which means Achas hi Yonasi Samosi. She is one, Achasi, she is one, Yonasi, my dove, Tamasi, my perfect one. She is one, my dove, my perfect one. Achas hi le'ima, she is one to her mother, or she is one for her mother. Barahi le'yoladta, she is pure for the one who has given birth to her. Ra'uha vanos, the daughters have seen her. Vai asheruha, and they have proclaimed her praise. Now, that's not a very precise translation. Vai asheruha, they have ashered her. What does it mean to asher her? The verb asher in Hebrew is from the word. It's related to the word we say in Hebrew, like ashrei. Like we have a part of our prayers called ashrei, which begins with these words, Ashrei Yoshevei Veisecha. And what does the word mean there? Fortunate are those who dwell in your house. That's our praise of God. Fortunate are those who dwell in your house. You're so great, God, that anyone who has the privilege of dwelling in your house is extremely fortunate. Ashrei. Ashrecha Yisrael mikamocha. The Torah says, Israel, Ashrecha, how fortunate are you? Mikamocha, who is like you. So, Vai Asheruha, and they praised her in the manner of saying how fortunate you are, right? That's a more precise definition of Vai Asheruha.
Rabbi, I have a quick question.
Yeah.
Just really quickly, just because I know a lot of my Jewish friends are also Buddhists as well. Like, does the term ashram come from our Hebrew word ashrei?
This is a great question. This is such a great question. I'm going to start by saying I don't know. I'm going to continue by saying I don't know enough about Buddhism to answer. In other words, if I asked a Buddhist, what does the word ashram mean? Now, I know an ashram is basically a place of meditation and study. Am I correct or incorrect?
That's how I understand it when they talk about it. But
right.
I was just wondering if it was like how we say in the Ashrei, like dwelling, like we're fortunate because we can dwell, in that place with Hashem. But does that word come from our Hebrew? Like they're happy that they're dwelling in their own.
I'll tell you, I heard something about this from a fellow named Gutman Locks. Gutman Locks, Gutman Locks, not like the fish, like a lock on the door. Gutman Locks. Gutman Locks is a very elderly, holy Jew, lives in Jerusalem. He stands at the Kotel, at the Western Wall, all day long at a table with tefillin, phylacteries. And anytime he sees a Jew pass by who doesn't look Orthodox, he stops them and offers for them to put on tefillin. He's somewhat affiliated with Chabad. I don't know if he is a absolute Chabad chassid, but he has a lot of affinity for Chabad for sure, and so like the Chabad who often they'll have tables with tefillin to put on people on the street. He does the same thing at the Kotel all day long, and he posts about it constantly on Facebook. I suggest, by the way, if you're on Facebook, which you are, I think, go ahead and look up Gutman Locks. See if you could become friends with him on Facebook. He posts very frequently some deep thought, beautiful idea, and many times he'll post photos of the people that he met at his table and put tefillin on them for the first time, and he usually has a conversation with them, and they share some thought about how it felt to put on tefillin for the first, perhaps only time in their life. He has a very nice social media presence. He's like 90 years old, the guy. It's amazing. He also has a YouTube channel called Gutman Locks, and he posts up there many videos on topics of spirituality. Now, what makes him such an expert in spirituality? Gutman Locks grew up as a secular Jew. He became a Buddhist, Hindu, I would call it like an Eastern mystic. He went to India searching for spirituality. He apprenticed by one of the top mystics, gurus over there. He became, one of these super meditative guys, 23 hours a day meditation, eating a bowl of rice a day. And he writes about it in his book. He has a book called From Central Park to Sinai, something like that, or Coming Down to Earth. I don't remember. But anyway, you look up the Gutman Lockson book and you'll find it. I think it's called From Central Park to Sinai. But basically what happened was he became a guru, a mystic of Eastern meditation. And he came back to New York and he used to sit on a bench in Central Park and meditate all day. And in those days, which were the real hippy-dippy days, crowds of hippies, like-minded hippies, would gather around him and meditate with him. He would draw these crowds just sitting and meditating silently. He wouldn't talk all day, every day. And people would sort of line the sidewalk and just make concentric semicircles of sitting, meditating people, meditating with him. And he eventually led like a whole movement. He was known as the Central Park Guru. And he led a whole movement of these hippies on like a pilgrimage to different exotic places where they would set up like an ashram and go meditate and stuff like that. It's all in his book. Anyway, eventually he was following like whatever was speaking to him inside his soul, going here, going there. And he eventually became a Christian faith healer. And then later on, he found his way to Jerusalem, came to the Western Wall, bumped into some Orthodox Jews, he himself being a secular Jew by birth, went to yeshiva, and he said he never left. He went to yeshiva and he never left, and he became a full-on Torah observant Jew. And so he spent many decades now of his life dedicated to learning and teaching Torah and trying to bring people close to Hashem. Why do I bring this up? Because many of his YouTube videos deal with topics of Eastern mysticism and spirituality and their interplay with Jewish ideology. And he talks about the connections between Eastern mysticism and Judaism, including the concept of the ashram, which he says the following about it. He says that for sure Hinduism has taken a lot of cues from Judaism. Now, it's hard to say that because Hinduism is a very ancient religion, but what he says is based on certain verses in the Torah where we find that it says that we were talking about the sons of Keturah, right? So it says that Abraham gave the sons of Keturah gifts and he sent them to the east. And our rabbis identify the gifts as certain spiritual ideas, and he sent them to the east. And some believe that descendants of Keturah found their way into the Eastern Asiatic lands and shared ideas of mysticism and spirituality with these Eastern cultures, which sort of got entangled in idolatry. And now many of the ideas that exist in Eastern religions like Hinduism and Buddhism actually derive ultimately from the Torah. And one of the examples is that the creator in Hinduism, listen to this, is called Brahma. Brahma. Now, I don't know what Brahma means in Hindi, but he says, Gutman Locks, Brahma is just an anagram of Abraham. So in other words, it's God of Abraham is Brahma. Brahma is the chief god. He's like all the mini gods sort of derive their power from Brahma. So Brahma being the sort of source of all godly divine energy, he relates to the God of Abraham. And also he says that you find many of the children of Keturah's names are mixed in with Hindu symbols. So for example, haShirim is one of the children of Keturah, haShirim. And he says that the word haShirim in Hebrew actually means camps. And so he says ashram is from Ashurim because it's sort of a camp for worship, meditation, study. It's like a campground. It's sort of true. I know Jews who were into these religions and became Orthodox later, but talked about how they lived in the ashram, which was like a camp, and got married there, etc., whatever. So this is what Gutman Locke says. It seems he has a lot to say on this topic. So if you want to know more, I'm not the guy, but you could ask him. While I'm on the topic, though, I wondered if Brahma is God of Abraham or if Brahma is the Hebrew words bara ma. Bara ma means he created what there is, meaning he created all of existence. Bara ma, he's the creator. Brahma is the creator. So that's what you could still see the link to Hebrew and Hebrew ideology, Jewish ideology, in the name Brahma. And it could be both. I said this to someone not too long ago. It could be both, because even the Torah talks about the creation in the following way. It says, these are the Ela Toldo Shemayim Va'aretz. These are the, if you will, the generations of the heavens and the earth, Bihi Bar'am, which literally means when they were created. But our sages point out that the words Behi Bar'am, when they were created, is an anagram of Avraham. And they point out the fact that the reason that the Torah uses the word Behi Bar'am to describe the creation is to hint to the fact that the world was created for the sake of Abraham and his seed. So these are the generations of heaven and earth, Behi Bar'am, which were intended for Abraham to be created. So they're not mutually exclusive, whether Brahma is an anagram of Abraham or an anagram of, Hibaram, creating. These two essentially go together. Anyway, great question. Let's learn some Shir haShirim.
Thank you, Rabbi.
I have a question.
Yeah.
Related to this. Do you know how long Gutman Locke has been at the Kotel?
I would say decades.
Okay, I was there in 2007. And I remember a man sitting at a table with tefillin.
Well, there's always someone sitting at a table with tefillin. He's not the only guy.
Okay.
But he does spend several hours a day there. That's like his big claim to fame. But he's not the only guy. It's not like his table. He's just one of the guys that mans the table a lot of the time. But he would be a very elderly looking guy. So, okay. Spooky says, what all do we know about the coming Messiah? Okay, great question, but too much of a topic for this class. You have to talk to me outside of the class, or look it up on YouTube, but don't look at what the Christians say. Look at what the Jews say. So probably something like Tovia Singer, Messiah, see what he talks about. Or whatever, you can contact me separately. RabbiRafiMallet@gmail.com. Cheryl. Hi, Rabbi. Hi, Cheryl. Great to see you. Cheryl's my friend. Wait, he says something else. The coming Messiah's wife, what do we know about the coming Messiah's wife? I will admit to you right now, full transparency, I don't know anything at all about the coming Messiah's wife. Sorry to disappoint. Janice Hart, interesting to know that Muslims will use Orthodox rabbis to circumcise their children and that the age is not important to them. I never knew that before. Thanks, Rabbi. Yeah, apparently that's so from my experience, what I have seen, my years. His bride, wow, okay. Fine. So back to the text, maybe we're at, okay. Says like this. Yeah. So I was translating the word. She is one, my dove, my perfect one. She is one to her mother. She is pure to the one who bore her. The daughters have seen her and praised her. We're saying praised her in the manner of saying, how fortunate are you, Esrei, And then we got into the ashram thing, and I'm not sure what the connection is to ashram. Melachim ufilag shem vayhaleluha. Queens and concubines, implied verb, have seen her. This verb is being used by both phrases, daughters and also queens and concubines, vayhaleluha, and they have praised her. The vayhaleluha, that's more of a direct translation to be, and they praised her. Whereas vayasheruha is specific, the form of praise of, ashreichem, you're so fortunate. Okay, what's going on in this verse? Let's go to the commentary. This is the commentary of Rashi. He says, Achas hi yonasi, she is one, my dove. Umi kulam, and from them all, so Rashi's now tying it back to the previous verse. God said, there are 60 queens, and there's 80 concubines, and there's maidens without number. And of them all, Achas hi hanivcheres li liyona tama. There is one among them all, among the 60, the 80, and the countless others. There's just one among them all who has chosen for me as a perfect dove. Yonasi tamasi, my dove, my perfect one. What does it mean, a perfect dove? Shehi tamimas leiv im benzuga. She is of whole heart. Tama is perfect or whole. Shehi tamimas leiv im benzuga. She is of whole heart with her partner, Ben Zuga, her partner. So in other words, we described before, many times he praises her as my dove. And we said one of the reasons that the dove is chosen is because doves are famously monogamous creatures. They are loyal to their significant other. The one male, female, they have one partner. At least at one time, and could be if one dies, they move on. But doves are famous as being monogamous birds. So she is like a dove in that way, and she's tama, she's whole, meaning which goes to mean perfect. But Rashi says she's of whole heart with her partner. That's just one description of the extent of her loyalty. She's not just loyal to one partner, but she gives her whole heart to her partner. She's not splitting her heart and saying, okay, I'll have one partner, but I'll give you half my heart, and the other half of heart I'm going to be thinking about, what's on television tonight, right? She's totally, fully dedicated with her entire heart and her entire focus on her partner. She's my dove, my perfect one, my whole one. Fine, stop me at any time. Achasi le'ima. She is one to her mother or for her mother. You able to see the text? Yeah. What does it mean for her mother? Lichnesi yasa. It means for her congregation. Now, to understand this, you have to go back to chapter 3, verse 11. Chapter 3, verse 11, I don't remember what number class it was, but if you look at the playlist, you'll see the thumbnail and the title of the class is something like Mother of God. It describes Shlomo HaMelech, who is in the parable that is God, and his mother. And we said, who's the mother of God? And we said it's the congregation, the Knessia, the congregation. And we explained why that is the parable over there. But mainly when we talk about the congregation, well, then who are we talking about when we say the dove? I mean, isn't the nation the congregation? So what we mean when we say the congregation, the Knessia, what we mean is the leaders of the congregation. We mean the sages of Israel, who are the teachers of Torah. So the teachers of Torah are, so to speak, the mother, and we spoke about it in as much as they bring the knowledge of God into the world, like a mother brings a child into the world. The sages are the masters of the Torah, which teaches us the ways of God. But also more than that, we talked about, I remember that we ran out of time in that class and we couldn't go fully into, but the idea that the rabbis create legislation and enactments that expand upon and expound upon the principles in the Torah, sort of like like one giving birth to a new life. And so they're the ones sort of expounding on the Torah and bringing out the Torah wisdom, like one giving birth to new life. So they're described as the mother. So it says she is one to her mother, and again lichnei siyasa, to her congregation, which we're going to see, even though Rashi doesn't specify here, but from that class we came to understand that it means the Torah sages. Watch what Rashi says. He specifies now, harbe machlokos bivate midrashos. There are many arguments that go on in the study halls of the Jewish people. The rabbis, the students of the Torah, are studying the Torah, and they're engaged in argumentation over the correct understanding of God's word. And so there's a lot of we find a lot of argumentation in the tradition, and also walk into any yeshiva and look how they're studying in the halls. It's not a library like one of my teachers used to say, where it's just dead. You go in and it's like, and everybody's sitting and looking into books and just quiet research. I don't know if anyone does books anymore, libraries anymore. It's the internet age, once upon a time. And you go into a Jewish library, so to speak, the study hall, where the shelves wall to wall and ceiling to floor are just books. And you see everybody with books on the table piled up, and this one's, yelling at that one, and he's yelling back, and this is what it means. And no, what are you talking about? You don't understand it. Let me explain it to you. No, he's not. What is he saying? Is he saying this? He's saying that? No, he's saying this. Let me bring a proof. No, look over here. Look, it says, you see, here's the support for my position. And this agrees with me over here. They're just arguing this. It's so loud. It's so loud. You could look at there's a video on my channel. If you go to the playlists, and you go to the playlist entitled Jewish Inspiration or something like that, it has like short 5-minute videos that I clipped out of several classes. And scroll down. One of the videos is called the Base Medrash Experience. The Base Medrash Experience. Base Medrash being the study hall. And I describe over there what it's like in a classical yeshiva. That's a place of Torah learning in the study hall, the Base Medrash, in that environment. What's it like to be in there? Go check that out. But I'm describing it now somewhat as well. It's a loud environment where people have all the books open and they're yelling at each other to try and bring out what is the correct understanding. We want to know what's true. So if he says something and I disagree with it, I don't sit there quietly like a lamb. I argue, and we argue for hours until we come to a conclusion. And that's the way yeshiva learning goes. We're very passionate about reaching a true conclusion, a correct conclusion. So there harbi machlokos bivate midrashos, says Rashi. You go into the study halls and you see there's a lot of arguments going on. Kulam libam lahavin Torah al mechona. All of them have their hearts set on understanding the Torah al mechona, on its foundation, meaning to set the Torah steadily and sturdily on a proper foundation of truth, v'al amitasa, and upon its truth, from the word emes, truth. What's the arguing? So it looks like fragmentation. It looks like a fractured image of people disagreeing and fragmenting, arguing, discord. But no. When you see that, you understand this is in the service of unity, because all of our hearts are set to unify the understanding of the Torah into one correct, proper stream of understanding. So that's achas hi le'ima. She is one to her mother. That mother, which we said before, the sages, the Torah learners, the Torah students who are engaged in vociferous arguments. It's all for achas hi. Don't be fooled. You're going to walk in and see the rabbis arguing. Achasi, it's one, because even if they don't agree, but their intention is all one. Their intention is to come to the truth of the Torah. We all have the same goal. We might be going about it in diverse ways, but that diversity revolves around one unified intent: to understand the Word of God. Okay. That is, she is one to her mother. That mother that congregation of Torah learners and Torah teachers, despite the arguments, is unified in that goal. Okay. Barahi lioladta. She is pure to the one who bore her. What does that mean? Yaakov ra'a osa mita shlema belo psol. Yeah, I'm going to translate it and then we'll explain it. Yaakov saw a complete bed without any impurity. Without any impurity. What does that mean? The idea of mita shlema, the complete bed, is a euphemism for children who all follow the way of the Torah, right? Your bed, that's the symbol of the offspring. Mita shlema, a perfect bed, as it were, means progeny who are righteous. Righteous progeny is called mita shlema. So Yaakov saw his righteous progeny below psul with no impurity. V'hoda, and he gave thanks. V'kiles lamakom, and he praised God. Shenemar, as it says, as the verse in Genesis says, Vayishtachu Yisrael al rosh hamita. Israel bowed over the head of the bed. So, and that's in Genesis chapter 47, verse 31. What's the context there? The context there is that this was at the end of Jacob's life, and he's sick in bed, and Joseph comes to him, and he brings him his sons, Ephraim and Manasseh, for a blessing. And it says that Israel prostrates himself over the head of the bed. What does that mean? So Rashi, in my footnote number 25, here's the verse. It says, Vayomer Hishava Ali, Yaakov asks Joseph to swear to him that this might actually be a little bit before he blesses the sons, but he asks Joseph, his son, to swear to him that he will not bury him in Egypt, but rather he will bury him in the land of Israel, in the land of Canaan. And so it says, he says, swear to me, Vaishavalo, and he swore to him. Joseph swears to him that he will bury him in Canaan, which he does do. Vayishtach Yisrael Moshe Mita, and Israel prostrated himself over the head of the bed. Rashi there comments on that verse. He says, what does it mean that he prostrated himself over the head of the bed? Al shahaiso mitaso shlema. He prostrated himself over the fact that he had a perfect bed. There's that euphemism. That he prostrating himself over the bed, where it may mean literally he was on the bed, but it's hard to prostrate yourself. How do you do that on the bed? You're laying in bed, and what do? You turn over onto your stomach, because prostrating is to be flat, and if you're sitting up and you're going to bend forward, that's also not prostrating, because that's not bending flat, that's folding yourself over. It's very awkward to imagine that he's sort of in bed and he's prostrating. Prostrating means, so it seems that he actually prostrated himself, which would mean that he went on the floor, but then it wasn't over the bed. So what does it mean over the bed? So Rashi says it was over the fact he prostrated himself in thanks to God over the fact that the bed was perfect, meaning that his offspring was righteous. V'lo haya ba resha, there was no wickedness in his bed, meaning in his offspring. Shaharei Yosef Melechu, for behold, here was Joseph, king of Egypt, land of licentiousness and lasciviousness and idolatry and immorality and whatever else. V'od shenishba lebein hagoyim, and prior to that, he had been captured among the nations who don't uphold our standards of morality and our standards of belief. And even though he had been captive among the nations, and now he has the autonomy as king to do whatever he wants to do. V'harehu omed b'tzidko, and yet he stood and he remained in his righteousness. So all his other sons who grew up in the sheltered environment of Jacob's home, okay, they were all frumma kids, and that was great, but it wasn't surprising to him. But here he lost Joseph, and what might be worse than losing him physically is to lose him spiritually. My son's been captive among the nations. He didn't know. He thought he was dead. But after knowing that, and now he's reunited with Joseph, and he sees how Yosef has maintained his fealty, his loyalty to Hashem. Over this, he prostrates. That is the understanding of Rashi of that verse. And that's what he's referring to here. She is pure to the one who bore her, is the reference of Israel being this pure progeny that is the offspring with no wickedness in it, just like Jacob expressed in prostrating over the incident with Joseph. Okay, coming to the end, Ra'uha Vanos, the daughters saw her. Who did they see? Es Yisrael. They saw Israel, Big Dulasa, in her greatness. Now, again, that refers to the Second Temple period where the Jews did achieve a degree of greatness, which we'll have to expand on maybe when we get to the next verse, which looks like will be next time. Vayasheruha, and they praised her. You're fortunate, right? Umahi kilusan. What is, says Rashi, what is this praise? What did they praise her? Now, again, even though I said Vayasheruha is like you say, Ashrecha, you're fortunate. Over what? In other words, what was the subject over which they declared how fortunate she was? So that looks like, given our time limit, will have to be discussed next time, because the next verse would take us too far into the next hour to justify, I think, starting it now. I'm going to look at the YouTube comments in the meantime. Okay, it does not look like we've had more comments. There's some private chat, but I won't announce those chats out loud. Okay, so the contents of some of the private comments that I'm not naming because they're private, but what they say I think I could share is someone shared that Princess Elizabeth, who became Queen Elizabeth, is recorded as having what does it say here? The now King Charles circumcised when he was a baby, by a mohel, no less. Okay, so I didn't know this. Someone shared with me in the private comments that a mohel, that is a Jewish ritual circumciser, did the circumcision of Charles. I always wondered, by the way, about the fact that they're called the British, and Brit is the covenant that a Brit is shorthand for a Brit Milah, circumcision. I wonder if that ever had any connection. I'm sure I heard rumors that the royal family claims descent from David. I don't think that's true, but it's interesting.
Rabbi, there are photos of the mohel with Elizabeth and the baby.
Oh, those are actual photos of it.
Yes.
I didn't say I didn't think what that about the circumcision was not true. What the claims that I heard that the royal family are somehow descended from King David or something, that I don't accept. but it's I don't know, and they're called British, and now you tell me that that she had a ritual circumciser come and do the circumcision, So someone commented that based on what I said about Goodman Locks, they want to read his book. Yeah, it's an interesting book. It's a fascinating book. Yonah means dove, someone asked. Yes, Yonah means dove and pigeon because they are the same bird, essentially. And someone said, I think it's good that Jews don't. I think it's supposed to be don't. D-O-N-F, don't. I don't know what that means. I'm assuming it's supposed to be a T. I'm not sure what was meant to whoever sent that message. I think it's good that Jews don't. Was that the intent? And if so, don't what? Don't what? Okay, so Happy Mac says, thank you, sir. And I say, you're welcome. Spooky said, one flesh. I'm not sure what you're commenting about. So if you could clarify, please, that would be helpful. And so someone followed up. I think it is good that Jews engage in the vigorous discussion and debates in the study halls, because in the Western world, we're taught not to discuss religion and politics. Well, we're not trying to discuss it with outsiders. But amongst ourselves, we are discussing it, and specifically Torah, not politics. Hopefully, okay. I'm happy to end the class here. If someone has a question or a comment, now is your opportunity.
I have one last comment, Rabbi.
Yeah, go ahead.
So just like whenever we're talking about like sages and teachers and yeshivas and things like that, I'm pretty sure it's Mishlei chapter 16. I can't remember the verse, but it talks about how a man's heart is like deep waters, and it takes a man of understanding to draw them out. That always reminds me of how our teachers, they know how to draw out the potential in all of us, and how they teach us and how we go back and forth and learn that way. Yeah. So I think we all have like ideas because we're all like these deep wells of water, but like Hashem uses our sages to like to draw out the potential in all of us to help share and grow each other. So
that's what a good teacher does. So I offhand, I don't know the citation in Proverbs, but sounds good to me. I affirm that comment as being correct and accurate. I like what you said. Any other questions or comments before we close down? No.
Thank you, Rabbi.
Yeah, you're welcome. So it's very exciting because we have 2 verses left in the chapter. So we're really, we have 2 more chapters to go, but we're coming to the end of chapter 6, and I get excited. I was like, wow, we finished the whole chapter. Isn't that exciting? So we're coming to the end, and God willing, next week, I don't know if there's 2 verses left, right? Will we get through both of them next week? Maybe. Find out. We may have only a week remaining to finish chapter 6, tops 2 weeks, but it's very exciting to be on the cusp of that. So yeah, so that is verse 9. That's the completion of the praise in verse 8, where he builds up like there's 60 queens, 80 concubines, maidens without number, but there's only one that I've chosen for me, because she is so loyal to me, and she's so dedicated in the study hall to fighting over my truth, and anyone who can see the profundity of that, sees her beauty and praises her, and sees her purity and her righteousness. So that was the buildup of all the nations of the earth. Of all the nations of the earth, this is the one who exemplifies these qualities, and that's why I have such a special interest in her. So okay, that now, right, and just remember that it ends off with, the other daughters, which of course would be the other nations. Like it says, Malachim Melachos. What does it say? The queens and the concubines. That's what it actually said in the verse. The queens and the concubines see her and praise her. So again, the queens and the concubines, all those other nations from the previous verse that we referred to, and the daughters, which presumably could be the maidens in the previous verse, they all see this one of all of them, and even they see her beauty, and even they praise her. And so Rashi ends with this cliffhanger of, and what is that praise? You'll have to tune into verse 10 to find out.
Thank you. Have a good evening.
Okay, good night, Cliff. Thank you for coming.
Thank you, Rabbi. Lila Tov.
Lila Tov, thank you.
Thank you, Rabbi.
Thank you.
You're
Lila
welcome.
Tov.
Lila Tov, good seeing you. Yaakov, nice to see your virtual presence and hear your voice, Chana. And everybody out there on the YouTubes, thank you for tuning in, and see you, God willing, next week. Or Wednesday afternoon, 5 o'clock Central Time on Tanakh Talk channel for the weekly Parsha.
Good night.
Good night. Bye-bye. Oh, Janice Hart. She got it in under the buzzer. Thanks so much for your time, Rabbi Maltz. Appreciate it. Have a great week. You're welcome. Same to you. Good night.